It's time for Push to Play, your weekly trophy podcast and all things PlayStation with CJ, Mindi Unknown.
Hello, welcome, and thank you for joining us to episode 11 of Push to Plat. Whether you be a first-time listener or a return voyager, I want to thank you for taking the time to come and listen to us today as we talk games, PlayStation, and, well, who knows, anything in between, I suppose. I'd like to welcome... Well, actually, I don't know how to do this. I suppose we should just do it this way, yeah. I'd like to welcome our new host, Mindi. How are you today?
Hello. I'm good. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you. And again, obviously, I want to thank you for joining us. Just to explain to the listener, what we've decided to do is, we mixed it up a little bit last week. What we've decided to do is bring on a new host as well. So Unknown's still here, don't panic, he hasn't gone anywhere. He will be back. In fact, he will be back next week, I believe, for our episode. But just to make it a little bit easier for everyone, because it is a massive time commitment to do a podcast, and even though we love it, and hopefully you enjoy listening to it, it's just a little bit easier to mix it up and around as well. If you've been following sort of like all the trophy hoary news, you also know there's a few things going on there. So it just gives everyone a bit of time and a bit of space to just figure out what they like to play, how they like to play, and then how they want to talk about it, which will obviously make it more interesting. So that's a bit of good news. I also have a little bit of bad news today, Mindi.
Oh, no.
Yes, and listeners, I have to inform you that even though we're bringing on a new host, you're still going to be stuck with me each week at this stage. Well,
that is bad news.
It's unfortunate news for us, isn't it? But you know what?
So we're not gonna like put all three names in a hat and then draw two out to see who hosts that week.
Look, I would be more than happy to do that. Yeah, if anyone else wants to learn how to edit, by all means, please jump in and do that.
Yeah, no.
Do we put the names or the keys in a hat? How does that work?
I don't know. All I know is I don't want to learn how to edit, so I guess we're stuck with you. Yay!
Yeah. And that is the bad news, listeners, as well. So, unless someone else retires this week, because surely everyone else has that's left, that's how it will go down. Cool. So I think we're going to just avoid the question at all today. There's too many questions flying around anyway. I can't keep up. So let's go straight in, Mindi, to what have you been playing this week?
What have I been playing this week? Honestly, not a whole lot. Last week I talked about My Big Sister.
Yes.
I did play that. That was last week's rat game.
Yes.
There's a new one coming up this week.
Now, can I just I think if we went back and we looked at last week's episode, I think you scared me a little bit by saying this game could be quite long, like 10 hours long.
Yeah.
Is it actually that long, or do you just not have to play it all for the play?
You do have to play it all.
Oh, okay.
There are games with multiple, this game has multiple endings. It's not the longest game. What I said was the person I know who wrote the guide, who wrote the walkthrough, went in it totally blind, and it took her 10 hours to finish it. She has distilled it down to a 1 to 2 hour platinum walkthrough.
Oh, okay. Well, aren't we lucky we have these people? Just fantastic.
But I will say, like my walkthroughs, you are missing stuff if you're just following the walkthrough.
Yes, yeah, of course.
But it was cute. It reminded me of Lucanor, of Count Lucanor. It's kind of that pixely top-down horror that's more about the. There's some gore effects to it, but it's more about just kind of the. I don't know how to explain it. It's not really an atmosphere because it's pixelated, but it's just kind of the feel you get from the environments, which I guess is technically atmosphere. I don't know how to explain it. I liked it though. I dug it.
It's highly narrative based, or?
Yeah. so I don't want to say too much about the story.
No, of course. Yeah.
It is just about these sisters, and they wind up in this moving van or something, and they're working their way back home, but there's like a curse, and I don't know, give it a shot. It's like $5. Give it a shot.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Sounds like a good recommendation. Yeah. What else? What else have we got?
Let's see. Oh gosh. What did I play? I stacked Metagal again.
How many times have you done that now?
Twice.
Oh, so you still got one more time.
Yeah, eventually.
Yeah.
Let's see what else. Oh, Masira? Masira?
Oh.
So this is a like a first person, not a first. It's a puzzle adventure game with a bit of platforming in it. It's meant to represent what it's like to be a refugee. Like it's a big metaphor about kind of the journey you take from leaving your war torn or embattled country to your new land. So it's not this like totally bleak, like everyone's dying, blah blah blah. It's all symbolic, these stages you're playing. It was interesting. It didn't the controls weren't the best, which is never good for a game that has platforming. I don't want slippery controls on a platformer. If you're gonna have platforming, you better make damn sure you got some tight controls. And it's really hit and miss in general with people who make platformers.
So is this just like a mashup of a lot of different things? Like it's not a platformer per se, though, is it? Like it has platforming, does it? But it's not a platformer.
It has
Yeah.
platforming as part of the puzzle solving,
Okay.
but no, it is not a platformer. It is a puzzle adventure.
Okay,
game.
so adventure game, yeah.
Yeah.
Would you I mean, let's break it down here. We're talking to a lot of trophy whores and gamers of this nature as well. I know we not everybody that listens to this is like me, but would you recommend playing this without a guide or not? I mean, is it playable without a guide? I wonder.
It is playable without a guide. It's got chapter select, so you're really not missing much.
Okay.
If you do play it blind.
Yeah.
I would say 3/4 of the trophies are story related anyway.
Always drop back and clean up afterwards then.
Exactly. And it's definitely, I wouldn't call it trophy horror, like a horror game, like trophy horror.
No.
But it is, if you're a trophy hunter, you're probably going to throw this one on your profile.
Yeah. Oh, I see it has some collectibles as well. Okay. It's got a bit of everything. Yeah.
Yeah.
It sounds like you're on the fence on that one. I don't know whether
it's not bad. It's not bad. It's not bad. I don't think I would replay it. And the last thing I played, I finally got around to What Remains of Edith Finch.
Good.
Well, because I looked at this game that never went below $10 if it ever went on sale. But I looked at it, and around the time it came out, I think, is when they announced PlayStation Plus.
Yes. And
this was back on PlayStation Plus. Remember, like, there was a really brief period for PlayStation Plus where the free games would be new games. And it was like they'd give you a list of 4 or 5 games and the community would actually vote. Like that's why we got one month like Grow Home.
Oh, yes. I remember
which had just come out, and then the day it came out, it was free for PlayStation Plus members.
Yes.
And so I looked at Edith Finch and I was like, this is gonna go on PlayStation Plus. I know it's gonna go free on PlayStation Plus. I'll just wait for that.
Yeah.
Granted, it took like 2 or 3 years longer than I thought it would take to go on PlayStation Plus, but it finally did.
Yes.
So patience pays off.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I mean, it's a good sort of game for. Well, I don't know. I think it's a good game for PS Plus, isn't it? I mean, it's not a full price game. I mean, for what it was, so it's a good pickup for them to put on there. I think. Yeah. It appeals to probably quite a large audience, I think, as well. So yeah, I think it was inevitable. I think you're right that it was going to end up there at some point.
Yeah, it just took way too long.
Yeah, yeah. Well, See, what they had to do was they had to get rid of all the PS3 games and the Vita games just to make room for it, obviously. And now that
I
they've done that,
guess.
there's plenty of room. Yeah, I'm trying to think the other PS Plus game. For this month,
Oh,
was
it's
it?
Overcooked, right?
Oh, yeah, that's right. So, yeah, interesting combination of games because the month before we had the Surge. I don't know if you're interested in that game, but it's very much on the other end of the spectrum. So, yeah,
Mhm.
it's good. It's good that they're mixing it up, I suppose. Yeah,
Well, everyone's got their problems
of
with Plus's
course.
game
Yeah, of
library,
course.
but I don't sometimes, sometimes you get good months, sometimes you get bad months.
Yeah, look, that's exactly right. And sometimes you already own it, sometimes you don't. Beforehand, it's just the luck of the draw, I suppose, isn't it? There's nothing.
Exactly.
It's. I mean, I'm so tempted, listeners, to say, well, look, it's a free game, just suck it up. But then I know that we people already grating their teeth, going, it's not a free game. I'm paying $60 a year, whatever I'm paying for it. So but I mean, it sits somewhere in that boundary of freedom where you're paying to play online, and they're giving you a few extra things anyway. So I don't know. If it's not for you, I suppose next month there might be something that is for you.
It's all a big gray area, and it very much depends on how you look at what that $60 is paying for.
Exactly, yeah, exactly. And the reason I'm talking so much over Mindi at this point, listeners, is that I don't want her to tell me what she thinks of the game yet, because that is going to come up in our topic later on. So
I wasn't going to tell you what I
Okay,
thought of
good,
it because I do know it's part of the topic.
I know. So I really do want to hear what you thought of it. So but we will wait. We will wait on that. Yeah.
All right, tell me what you've been failing to play this week.
Oh, excellent. Well, first off, what I want to do, just because I forgot to do this at the start, and we've got time today because we're running very well on time. I did want to just extend to any of the new listeners that are joining us. I know our audience is slightly morphing or changing. We have a core group of trophy whores and hunters, and then we have, I think, which I like a lot, people that maybe play a little bit of everything, and maybe they hunt trophies or whatever else, but that's a secondary to the game. So I'm glad if you are one of those people and you're joining us. I noticed that our numbers are going up everywhere, including on the Twitter, which I mean, that's an amazing thing, isn't it? So, if you are one of those people, I definitely feel, I hope you feel you can stick around because, we do talk trophies. Obviously, we are a trophic-centric podcast to a degree, but, we also talk about games. And as you'll see as I get into this, if you're not familiar with me, I do tend to play a lot and I don't really pick games based on trophies anymore. So we have good coverage on everything. And, with everything that's been going on this week, I think it's important, if you are, from either side, that you feel that maybe you can find a home with us. We're a little bit more stable, perhaps, and a little bit more just doing our own thing, and a little bit less worried about what other people are doing or thinking. So, with that in mind, what have I been playing this week, Mindy? Let's have a look. You would think I would know, but I forget.
I do think you would know. Basically, if it's new, CJ's gonna be playing it. If it's something that came out like 4 years ago, it's probably me.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, well, you won't see any PS3 on my list. I think the PS3 died, actually. But anyway, so the first one I will throw out is Ugly Dolls, An Imperfect Adventure.
Oh yeah, you got it. You've been talking about this the last 2 times I've been on.
I am a sucker for a child's game. That's all I can say. That's probably a very dangerous sentence. I probably should have been careful how I said that. But I really do like these games. They're no-brain fun. And I think, if you're tired or if you're just looking for something to just tune out on and just follow the tasks and stuff, it's great. There is a story. It's a little bit silly, of course. But, the mechanics in the game, like these games, I know it's a movie tie-in, these games are always quite well polished for what they are. I think like it's all set in one sort of giant level, if you like, and then you little hub world or whatever off to the side of it. But each mission or each chapter goes back to the same overall world sort of space or whatever. So it does get a little repetitive there. The structure is sort of you find someone or you do something, then you have to pick up a certain number of collectibles or whatever else, and then maybe another set of collectibles, and then the chapter ends. So it's very formulaic as well, but
So it's like Zelda without the dungeons?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. I mean, it does even have like a little basic, problem solving, but I would say very basic, like of flicking the right switches, and things like this to you see the light, the electricity move along the ground. So it's it's designed for an easy experience, definitely, or whatever else. It has I mean, in a way, it's a little RPG-ish as well. It has a crafting system, so you have to collect the things out of the chests, and then you can craft. It's a very limited system, craft, and then you can use different things like jumping things and a flying hat and a locator, all these different sort of things. So look, it's fun, and look, ultimately, yes, it is probably a bit of a trophy hoarding game as well. I don't think it's super short, only because you have to play the game twice. There's 2 characters, so you would be playing it through twice. I'm pretty sure that the story will be the same the second time as well, just you're using a different character. So I'm not sure that there's any real change. Other than that, it does have co-op though, a local co-op only. So I'm not sure. It's possible you could actually play with both characters at the same time, and that there is a trophy for that. But play with both the characters at the same time. If you finish the whole game like that, I think possibly those 2 trophies might pop. I don't know for sure on that, but
Ooh, someone try it and get back to us.
Yes, that's right. That could, the percentages seem right. Looking at the trophy percentages, that is possibly what the people that have finished it have done. So anyway, of course, let us know. I would be fascinated if that is the case. But if you're worried about that, the 2-player trophy is very easy, because you could just literally, if you want to play it by yourself, just load into the first chapter, get the trophy, and then just quit out the second player and continue on. So it's not a game you need to play with 2 people at all. Everything is geared towards one person. I suppose it would just make it quicker with 2 people or whatever else, if that's what you wanted. So yeah, that's a lot on that game. And look, I would be remiss if I didn't say, but Unknown, if you're listening, if you've made it this far, there are cat avatars. I suppose that's the word for or cat trophy images, I should say. In fact, there's quite a few of them, I think. Or maybe that thing is not a cat, but that definitely is a cat, that one. So, you might even like this game.
I don't know, man. Last week you couldn't tell the difference between a cat and a fox.
Well, I was just saying there's quite a few, and then I was like, oh, hang on a sec, that is a cat, but that thing under it, well, that could be a cat. But then I looked at the chapter and it says rescue ugly dog. So I don't.
Are you talking about the green guy? Because he's like a bunny.
Oh no,
or a dog.
further down. Yeah, there's definitely it's a cat with wings. It's an ice bat. Oh, hang on, it's an ice bat. Oh, Wage has got to be a cat. Look at him. Yeah. Okay. So there's some sort of cat in there or whatever else. So yeah, look, it's fine. I would estimate that it'll probably be around 8 hours or whatever else. And I estimate you will not need a guide because it is very straightforward. What else have I been doing? I let the AI earn me a few trophies in Mortal Kombat. Congratulations, AI. You are stunning as usual with your depiction of the fatalities. It's actually quite fun to watch, I think. So yeah.
So you let the game continue to play itself?
Pretty much. I'm very good at that. I don't know if you've noticed that, Mindy. Most of my platinums have come that way, I think. So I know how to I know how to get out of the way of the PS4. That's for sure. So it did its business there. And then this one now, I don't know.
I think sorry, I want to jump in here.
Please.
What I think is really funny about you is that
there are many things I'm told.
You have all these games that you don't play. you go into them, you're in 1 or 2 trophies, and yet he is the 3rd highest ranked trophy hunter in Australia.
Is that true?
That is true.
Wow, look at that. So that just proves that anyone can get there, even someone that hardly plays the system.
Don't know if that's a ringing endorsement, man.
Well, look, the truth is important, I think. So, I don't know. To be honest with you, though, with this Mortal Kombat, the only reason I got it was for the story. So that was what interested me, and which I did play through, and I thought that was great. So the rest of the trophies I was not going to bother with because I'm not very good at fighting games, but a lot of them are actually quite easy. I mean, the game overall, I think, is quite an easy pipe compared to the other Mortal Kombats or whatever. So, just doing that, or just maybe getting a few extra trophies out of it, I suppose, with no effort.
You're third by, like, I'm looking at this. You are third by sheer numbers. You have played over 2,300 games.
Yes.
Over 2,300 games.
Yes.
You have completed a little over 800.
It's not bad, is it?
You have 26,872 unearned trophies on your profile, and you are third according to PSNP. You are third in Australia.
I'm not sure if I'm sensing admiration or disdain in your tone here, but
it's not. It's neither. It's somewhere in the middle.
It's ambivalence.
It's not that either.
Oh, no. Wow.
It's like a grudging but confused respect.
Yes. Well, I mean, it is confusing. I mean, trophy hunting in general is confusing, I think. So, look, I don't know. Like, as I've said to the listener before, I like to play a little bit of everything. I think, and I'm not
literally a little bit of everything.
Well, that's right. Well, some things I finish, but I definitely don't feel. That's why I find fascinating with completionists and with with everything else is that I definitely don't feel the urge to finish things if I don't like it. I have no problem with just walking away from it. But on the flip side, I won't not play something because I think I may not like it or it might be too difficult. I'll give it a go, and if it's not for me, that's fine or whatever. And I think, I mean, yes, I know like some people look at it and think it's a bit of a joke or whatever, but there are games that I've found that I wouldn't have found if I didn't have that mentality, I think, and that I've really liked. So I don't know. It's a bit of whatever it is, I think. But look, third in Australia. Maybe Australia is just weak. Maybe that's the other thing. Who knows? I mean, compared to some of the other countries like the States, like that would not be third. So yeah.
Who is first in Australia? First in Australia is some guy named X Cyberpunk. Nitro, who was a previous guest, he's fifth.
Yes. So look, there is some competition there.
Fifth in Australia.
Yeah. And look, and to be honest with you, I'm in a great position because there's no way I can catch the first or the second person, or I gave up on that a long time ago. But I think also in my ambivalent way of playing, there's no way that the fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh person can catch me in Australia either. So I mean I've got third locked down. Isn't that lovely? I'll be third. I'm the third best at something. Congratulations to me.
Yay, third
I tell you
place.
what, that's
all right,
okay, sorry, we've got to wait. Okay, what I was going to ask you was, did you ever play that bricks game? The ball.
Oh, like Arkanoid?
Yes, yeah. I don't know if that came on the PS4 recently. So this Dowlings probably arcade. So again, I just bought this on a whim to see what it was, and it's basically bricks, except that I don't know, these Dowlings, I suppose that's what they're called. You're hitting them with the ball this time rather than just boring bricks or whatever. It's actually a lot easier than bricks as well. So because obviously you gain like skills as you go along through the levels. So if you're having trouble with 3-starring a level, you could come back later and it would be a lot easier to do that level. So, but other than that, it plays the same. There are sort of 75 levels. You 3-star it or whatever else as you go through. It's a full trophy list, but everything there would come naturally. And again, it's quite a fun, like no-brainer type game or whatever else. So again, I assume it's going to be a little bit longer, possibly like 10 hours, I think, because I noticed no one's actually got the plat yet in that. So it's interesting. Morph 70 times into Webster. So let's hope that trophy's not glitched, although...
No, it looks like someone has, and it just hasn't updated yet.
Oh, good. So yeah, there's nothing. Everything would come naturally, so it surprised me if anything was glitched or it didn't work. So like that's good. It's quite cheap. I know on the NA store it's very cheap. If you're going to buy it, maybe buy it there, not on the EU store because it's double the price for some reason. Thank you, Sony, for looking out for us here in the EU. But it's a fun game or whatever else. I think it's quite good and it sits in the middle. And then just the usual. I will shout out a little. I feel like I'm talking a lot, but I think that's okay today. Why not? I'm going to shout out, I started Just Shapes and Beats. Have you ever heard of this, Mindy? The Beats and the Shapes?
No. Is it a rhythm game?
Yes, I think it is. Well, I think it's a bullet hell music game. With rhythm elements. Pass? Yeah.
Oh, super pass. You said bullet hell and I glazed over.
Yeah. Look, when I started it was
I'm too old, man.
Yeah.
I'm too old.
Yeah. No, I understand. It just gets... There's enough things coming at me in life. I don't need a million things flying at me on the screen either. But I do understand that. But when I started it, I thought it was a little bit tough. I was having trouble getting past the tutorial boss. And, obviously you learn the song, so it gets easier and you see the attacks. But then I was like... I looked at the trophy percentage and like everybody else in the world can get that trophy except me. And I was like, wow, I must really suck at this game. And then I realized that you can actually play it on casual mode and it does make the game a lot easier. So, and it doesn't say anywhere in the list that you have to play it on the normal hard mode. So, that if you're struggling, definitely jump into casual mode. I've been waiting for this game for quite a while. This came out on the Switch a few months ago to rave reviews. I can see why it would be perfect on the Switch, but it plays great on the PS4.
This looks like Sound Shapes.
Yeah, it's like Sound Shapes on acid or something. It's just, yeah, I don't know. It's got more going on, like more sort of bullet helly, I suppose. Things flying at you. The songs are great. Like it's heavily slanted towards electronica, but there is some sort of ambient, slower stuff in there as well, and a good mix. And one thing that it does have,
So it's like if Sound Shapes went to a nightclub.
Yeah, basically, I was thinking about it this morning, and it's like this game would be perfect for like a 20-year-old, who's out clubbing. They would love this sort of, the music, the soundtrack, but it works really well for a late 30-year-old as well, who doesn't want to go out clubbing anymore, but sort of wants that little bit of a touch, but then he can turn it off and have a sip of his white wine as well. So look, I think it's, it fits both markets fantastically well. It does have a story mode as well. Which is a little abstract, so they put the songs through it or whatever, but it's very cool as well. It'll be a long plat only because you have to complete these challenge modes, which is sort of like you either do in local or online play, and they seem to be 3 songs each. So if there's 50 of them, and they may open up, and then also getting the points as well. So that would depend on your skill level, I suppose, how quickly you could do that. But one of them there requires 15,000. So that's quite a bit of points. So that'll take a while, but it's very fun. I would definitely recommend jumping on that if you like music games, and not necessarily rhythm games where you're hitting a button on the beat, sort of moving around. Yeah, it's awesome. I think. I don't know. I'm going on a lot about it, so I must like it, but. I don't know. The online mode too is fun because you can play with up to 4 people online, but also just starts the lobby with 1, and you're sort of doing your own thing. But it's a little bit Journey-esque in a way, like you're doing your own thing, but you can see them on your screen as well, dodging as well, and it's cool, And if you die, they can help you come back to life and stuff. So it's quite fun, and that was a bit of a stealth release because I thought. The rumor was that was not coming out for a while, maybe till at least the end of the month, and that popped out on the American store just at the end of last week. So I don't believe it's on the EU store yet. Well, that's what I thought too. That's why I bought it straight away in case they took it away.
Wonder if that was a mistake.
They seem to have left it, so maybe they just don't care, or maybe it was always coming out then. Who knows? So that's good. And then the other thing I want to talk about, and because we've got a bit of extra time today, I thought we could talk about this now. And I didn't warn you about this. I've been sitting on the fence about this experience for a while. And I know you haven't played it. In fact, I know almost nobody has because I haven't heard anyone talking about it. So it's not a trophy game. I mean, there are no trophies at the moment. There quite possibly could be trophies later on. But this is the Dreams by Media Molecule. Are you familiar with this? I don't want to call it a game, this experience.
No, but those are the Little Big Planet guys, right?
That's correct, yeah. So are you familiar with those games? Or
Little Big Planet, yeah. I haven't heard of this Dreams game.
Okay, yeah. So this, I mean, it's not really a game for those people that know, like you'd understand why I hesitate. So it's a tool. It's a tool that will let you create. And it's not, I thought it was just a game engine going into it so that it would just allow you to create games in effect, but it's really more than that. It's an artistic medium, I think. So it'll allow you to create music, art, games obviously as well, and sort of just like anything in between. What I really like is that the game itself was made in this engine. So basically they're giving you the whole engine that they made I said game, but the experience in or whatever else. So if you have an interest in like game design or just creative pursuit and endeavor, I think this is something possibly to check out. I don't think this is something to check out if you're just looking for, for a gameplay or trophies or whatever else. Obviously, as I said, there is no trophy list at the moment, and it is only in early access at the moment for what that is worth, although there is a lot of content in it. So Media Molecule themselves have made quite a lot of like demos, if you like, of games or what it can do and little experiences. And then I was quite shocked at just how many things people in the community have already made.
Mhm.
So I just to give the listeners, because literally when I went in blind. So last night I played for a little bit, and I didn't try and create anything, so I'm not sure how difficult that is and how long and involved that will be. I will look into that, probably over the next few weeks, because there are a lot of tutorials as well. So it definitely explains everything. So if you're going to jump into this, I don't think you jump into it for 5 minutes. If you're really going to go into it, it's probably a big commitment. But you can of course just jump in and play other people's creations. So last night I played.
So is it like an expansion of, because Little Big Planet, all the first two, I think the third one did too, had level creators. Is this like an expanded version of that, or is it more like they just took the level creator out of Little Big Planet and made it a separate module?
Yeah, so this is a level creator. That's a good way of thinking, but it's a lot more than that. Like basically it's a game engine. So I didn't muck around much with Little Big Planet, but my understanding was you could create levels and stuff like that, and you drag things and build stuff. This is much more like, I have a feeling, and I'm sure we're going to see this over the next 6 months or a year or longer, because they do say that this is a long-term project for them, that you will see people making games in this, indie style games or whatever else. What will be very interesting is if it'll be monetized later on, whether you might be able to sell your game that you make in this or not. I don't know. That would, or who owns it, the game, would be very interesting to me as well, whether they do or you do, or what happens there later on. But yeah, it's basically like you can render in-game stuff. It gives you a music editor, if you like, an audio editor, a DAW, if you're familiar with those products, in-game as well. So giving you tons of stuff. And then it also gives you the ability to take things people have made and break it. So you can basically look at how they made it, and you can pull the walls apart, you can do different stuff. So as I said, I haven't spent a huge amount of time on it yet, but if you were studying in this field, or if this field interests you, I think it's amazing. And I think what I like about this, coming from a creative profession myself, and interest, is that these sort of things will attract people similar. This is not going to attract someone that just loves to play Call of Duty or whatever else. This is going to attract people that, are more interested in creating and just artistic medium or whatever else. And so just to see how they think and what they're doing, like there was a lot last night I tried of just people with like 30-second just testing the software, like visual trials, and bringing in rain or changing the light and stuff. So obviously, that's not a game. You're not going to, play that or whatever, but just to see, they're just trying to learn how it works so that they can obviously use these things later on. And I think it's a very nuts and bolts. Like it's almost like you're getting in at the ground level and seeing, where it's gonna go. Does that make sense? Or
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, it is. So just to give, in case you're thinking about it and you're wondering what you're going to do with it, if you're not sure if you're going to create, like, I played, and there are hundreds of experiences already. I played a little bit of PT. So someone has actually taken the Kojima game. I mean, if we could call that a game, and they've actually, the demo, and they're building it in engine in this game. And when I loaded it in, I thought, oh, this is going to be pretty dodgy. I wonder what it's going to look like. And yes, it graphically, it does not look like a AAA studio like a Konami could do, but it doesn't look like a low budget indie either. It looks somewhere in the middle. And, it played the loop. Now, he has not, the cool thing about this is the guy has not finished it yet. So it's not all there, but you can play the loop where you walk the corridor or whatever else, the radio. There's quite a bit there still. And it's just fascinating. I found that absolutely fascinating. In fact, I spent probably far too long with that or whatever. So I did a bit of that. And then someone's building a Mario game in there. So I played 2 levels of that. And again, it's in progress. So the Mario was there, the things were there, but the enemies are not in there. And when you load it up, he says you can read his notes. And he's like, okay, so the next thing I'll be working on is the enemies. And then I didn't realize this, but he leaves it open. So he's like, if you'd like to help me build the enemies, design, create them, etc., just put your ideas here and we'll collaborate. So it's not like you're just...
Oh, so this isn't like a recreation of a existing game. This is a guy making a brand new Mario game.
Yes, yeah, exactly. In this, experimenting, and you can help him build it as well if you like. So some of them are closed off. They obviously only want to work on it themselves. But some are obviously going to be community projects that are open. And then the third thing I played was a rhythm game, like a bit like Guitar Hero, if you like. And again, the guy had only put in 2 songs, but I was very impressed. Like the hits lined up, it worked very well. So I think, I think this is a product that, you wouldn't, I think it's about $40 Australian. So I'm not sure what it is, US, probably of similar value. I don't think this is something you'd jump into unless you're interested in this stuff. But I think potentially in 6 months or a year, this could be a game or an experience you buy, and then you could just have hundreds of games within it, smaller sort of experiences or games that you could just jump in and out of and just give a go. So, I don't know. I was very impressed. I thought it was a bit of a far-fetched project, to be honest, but I was quite impressed with what I saw. So I'm looking more, and I think it's a shame that unfortunately a lot of the other, it's not getting a lot of coverage yet, or at least I haven't heard a lot of coverage for it. So hopefully that improves as it goes, because I imagine this studio is a little bit on the line here. If this game or experience doesn't work, I don't know what the future for them will be after this, because of the time and money.
I don't know, man. They might be okay. Like Little Big Planet was not a small series.
No.
It might have made enough that they can take this kind of risk.
Yes. Yeah. And I really think that they're building here a platform. I don't think they're building a 1 year run and done sort of thing. I think they're trialing something that if it does work and if it goes ahead, this could be like a mainstay into the PS5 and the future sort of thing.
And it's not unheard of. Like I said, they put these level creators in all of their Little Big Planet games, but like what's it called? Like RPG Maker. That's not. I mean, it's a kind of a niche title. But it's not so super niche that they haven't brought it out in the West a couple of times. So this is not new ground, but it's definitely not common ground that you would see on, especially now where it's there's like 3 genres of games, and every game on the PlayStation is going to be that genre.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. Well, it definitely stands on its own, in this sort of thing. So it will be interesting to see what happens. But as I said, every day there's obviously it's growing and there's more and more stuff there. So the longer you leave it, just the more that will be available. And I don't know, this with everything that's going on and trophies and fun and all this stuff, this is a game that maybe it will be a break from all of that, because obviously there won't be trophies associated with all these little games and stuff. So I don't know. It's very interesting. I think very exciting. It is something different, at least. So yeah, I'm sure that will come up again. I hope that comes up again. And actually, if there's anyone in the community or anyone that's listening who's actually working, especially on the creative side, building or going to get into that, if you want to reach out to me, I'd be fascinated to talk to you at some point about how all that works, both from a personal perspective and potentially even on the podcast, if you are that way inclined, I suppose, as well. So how's that, Mindy? Did I express enough of what I played 5% of? Is that good?
I think you did, yeah.
I think that's quite impressive.
I think you passed for another week.
Good. I can come back again. I can come back again next week. we'll see.
You know what? I'm sure you will.
Yeah, good. So let's move on, because we want to get to the topic. Could we have a look at the new releases this week, Minty?
Sure. Let me pull.
There are a lot of new releases.
There are a lot of new releases.
I think we've got like 13 this week. So shall we just attack some?
But the real question is, how many avatars are they going to drop this week? Because if you look at the new release list,
yes,
it's always like 10 games and like 4 billion avatars and a bunch of DLC.
Somebody out there is making a fortune. Yeah. Someone is making a fortune on those avatars. They've got to be. Why would they keep making them?
What bugs me is that they're all trying to get to the top of the search bar. So these companies, not avatar. I mean, avatars, yes, but what I'm thinking of specifically are themes, but they'll all start with A. So it won't be like, if it's a theme of like the Sydney Opera House, right? It won't say Sydney Opera House theme. It'll say a Sydney Opera House theme, or a Eiffel Tower theme. And so I'm like, what are you guys doing? Like,
Is I hadn't considered that, but yes, that's exactly what's going on. Oh, you know what? Someone's going to realize that there's a search from A to Z, but there's also a search from Z to A. So someone's going to start mining the other end of it and just hoping
yeah,
that people push
exactly.
that button. Yeah, but look, good luck to them. Why not? Everyone needs to change their avatar every now and then. So
When it's kind of frustrating because the PlayStation Store, the browser store is not perfect.
no,
So if you were to just filter out and say there's a box you can tick that just says games,
mm,
but some new releases are released under bundle when they shouldn't be,
hmm
or application when they shouldn't be.
no,
So what I've ended up doing is whenever the new releases come out, I go because I like browsing, right?
yes,
So I
yes,
load up the new releases and then I filter price high to low. So then what I usually get right at the top
yes,
are like the $100 microtransaction currency purchases. And then I get the
hmm
real games. And then I start skimming again to see if, are any of those $5 games kind of, spattered in here, or is it just themes and avatars at this point?
it's a good way to do it. Yeah,
It's the most efficient way I've found to do it and still be able to browse,
yes.
as opposed to filtering and hoping for filtering just show me games and hoping that it hasn't left out stuff.
Stuff, yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, that is weird sometimes when things are grouped together. I agree, and some things just they don't show. I find, and then they're suddenly there or whatever. I have no idea how it works. So I tend to search on a release the last 7 days policy
Hmm.
because I find if I open it out any further than that, I get shocked by the number of purchase signs further down the page. So, although I will give Sony their credit, I think they're very intelligent. So when you buy a game and it says purchase, it doesn't tell you the current price of that game. So at least you don't feel, bad potentially that you paid more than it's currently worth now, 30 days later or something. So that's a good move on their behalf.
There's
I
actually a way to
think.
tell, and I don't
I'm
think I
sure
should
there is,
tell
and I
you
don't
what
want
it
you to tell
is.
me that.
All
No.
right.
I don't want to know that. Thank you.
I do that when stuff goes on sale. When stuff goes on sale and it's like a different sale price depending on whether you're a Plus member or not. That's what I do to compare price differences between
Oh, okay, yes.
what the base price of the game is, what the discount is for non-Plus members, and the discount for Plus members. Because sometimes they don't tell you. They have those sales.
Mm.
Sometimes they'll say like 20% off. PS Plus members get an additional 10%. But sometimes it'll say like PS Plus can save up to whatever percent off.
Well, I think it's really a topic, and it is a topic we should look into at some point. I've made a note of that. But the price, like with the discounts, and the sales, and just the price differences between the stores, like you can save substantial amounts of money on one game on the same day, just depending on which region you're using. Which is just and even currency or whatever and exchange rates and however you manage to fund and source that. Even with that aside and taking a bump there, which you would expect, it can still make a significant difference. And I find that quite amazing that for a multi national global company that their price setting in regions still they're not just a global price or something. So I don't know. I just find it
The
amazing.
the only gaming platform I know that does that, I think they still do it. They prided themselves on doing it for ages. Was Good
Hmm
Old Games, GOG. It was in kind of their written tenets, like it's going to be the same price across the board. So if it's $10 American, it is whatever the equivalent is in Australian, whatever the equivalent is in British
Yes.
pounds. It's not, oh, we're going to put a $10 price tag on it, but we're also going to charge $10 Australian, and we're also going to charge 10
Mm.
pounds. No, it's literally like here's the
Yes.
conversion, and
Yeah.
that's what you pay.
Yeah. No, I mean, I don't want to go too far down this track, but I know we've had a few questions about recommending region stores and things like that. And to be completely honest with you, the Australia,
Get an American
yeah, well, I
account.
was going to
If you are
say,
not an American, get an American
yes,
account.
Yeah. I mean, the EU
But for the
store is
last
not
year
not great.
but for the last year or 2, the better sales have been on the European store.
Maybe for sales, but just the general prices of things are usually cheaper on the
Mhm.
American store. And I mean, I personally, I don't use the American store. I use the Canadian store, but it's the same store or whatever else. The prices are roughly the same, but the difference between the UK store is massive. And then also the other one is the Hong Kong store, which I think, if you're only going to dabble in one region that wasn't your own, that's a fantastic store. I mean, for trophies, obviously fantastic, but also for just some strange experiences as well, but also for a lot of games that come out early on that store for some reason.
Do they?
Yes, they do. Like, yeah. Well, I mean, we'll get into. Well, let's just get into it now, if you like. And one of the games releasing this week, which I was going to talk about, was Figment. So I'll read it. I'll read it first. Figment, a musical action adventure set in the recesses of the human mind. Welcome to the world of Figment, a strange and surreal world, a place filled with our deepest thoughts, urges, and memories, populated by the many voices we hear in our heads. Join Dusty and Piper on an adventure.
Okay.
It's great, isn't it? Join Dusty and Piper on an adventure through the different sides of the mind. So this is actually coming out this week on the Western stores. This came out last week, or actually two or 3 weeks ago, on the Hong Kong store. It is a separate list too, so if that interests you in stacking, that could be a possibility. I forgot to mention, I have played this game. I highly recommend this game. I think it is fantastic. It's an indie experience and priced accordingly. There is a walkthrough, I understand, on a True Achievements as well. So if that concerns you at any point, you can see that. I don't think you really need it, except for maybe the collectibles at the end. But I'm hoping at some point you'll play this game, Mindy, because it's it is a puzzler, I suppose you would call it that. But it's just eccentrically off the wall. It is fantastic, and some of the music in it is great as well. So yeah. I think that.
Oh, I'm sure I'll get to it.
I recommend. It's about. I think it's going to be about 6 hours as well, so it's not a long game or anything like that. If that interests you, yeah. But I mean, that was just an example of something that's coming out early. So, is there something on this list that interests you, Mindy, out of these new releases?
Yeah. We got what do we got here? A Plague Tale: Innocence. This one I've been kind of keeping an eye on. Let me sidetrack and say the big game that's coming out, because we're gonna get that one guy who's like, "Why didn't you mention it?" Rage 2 is coming out this week. I have no interest in it, so I'm just gonna mention it and move on.
Excellent.
Um,
Well, look, I didn't know you were going to do that, so I'm going to talk again because everyone's heard enough of me now. All I want to say about this Rage 2 is that it comes with, now I don't know the correct word for this, but if you get the whatever edition, collectors or whatever, you get one of those talking heads. Are you familiar with these things, Mindy? It's like, you went to your grandfather's house and he had like the stuffed fish on his wall or something, and the bear, and this is the one that turns around and it like sings a song at you. I don't know if you I'm sure you've seen these things before. Anyway,
like a Billy Mouth Bass.
Yes, yeah, exactly. So this game, if you get this edition, it actually comes with like a dead severed head that does the same thing. So I think that is creepy but fantastic. So I'm getting that. I don't know if I'll play the game, but I'm getting that head. Okay, so anyway, sorry about that. Please continue.
Yikes. I'm actually kind of curious about this. Is this something that you pre-record messages on, or like you download an app and you speak into it and it kind of puppeteers the head?
Oh no, I think it's probably just preset with a series of things from the game, like random quotes or something from the game. But it looks fantastic.
I watched. Did you see? There's a guy. This has nothing to do with video games. There's this guy who works with electronics, and he reconfigured a Billy Mouth Bass. He installed his Alexa into it. So whenever he talks to Alexa, the fish head pops up and says like, "What can I do for you?"
That's awesome.
And it is eerie, but it is awesome.
I'm gonna totally try and put the Alexa in the head.
I think you should.
I will do that. That is awesome.
Or find someone who can. I think it's rife for exploiting.
Yes. Well, I'll just stick it to the side of it. But yeah, no, that would be fantastic.
Oh well, that's boring. Yeah. Kind of ruins the illusion.
I will look. If anyone out there knows how to do it, please contact me. Otherwise, I'll just hatchet job it. But that's going to be fun to try. Anyway, sorry, we detracted. So, A Plague's Tale. Please continue.
Yes, Plague Tale. Follow the grim tale of young siblings Amisha and Hugo, In a heart-rending journey through the darkest hours of history, haunted by Inquisition soldiers and surrounded by unstoppable swarms of rats, they must struggle to survive against overwhelming odds and find purpose in this brutal, unforgiving world. So I've actually been keeping my eye on this one a bit. It looks... This is a weird thing to say for the type of game it is, but it looks gorgeous. I'm wondering if it plays kind of like Brothers, A Tale of Two Sons, where you literally control both at once, or if it's kind of one of those standard, swap characters as needed. Yeah, I haven't looked into it too much, and I did that purposefully. So I can't say much else. Obviously, we're looking at it's about the Black Death, the European Black Death. But other than that, I don't. I haven't dug too much into it because I want to just experience it, and I'm just hoping. I'm hoping it's one of those $20 to $30 to $40 and not a full-on $60 game, but I kind of get the feeling it might be.
It is up for pre-order. I don't think it's full price. I think it is in that range that you're talking about. Yeah.
In that 20, 30, probably 30 or 40.
Yeah, 30, 40, yeah. US, yeah.
I don't know, but didn't Hellblade release at 20 or was it 30?
It may have been
Senua's
30.
Sacrifice, because that was a gorgeous game too.
Yes. This gives me the feels of that.
But like the whole thing about it was it launched at $30 or $40.
Yeah. Looking down the list, I mean, I'm prepared to, to stake a claim that this will be the best game that comes out this week. I think, I think hopefully it will be quite something. I'm doing the same as you, avoiding it because I'm looking forward to that. So that is exciting. Is there any others there you'd like to? You'd like to throw at us?
One that I did not know about until literally I saw it on this list, the Padre.
Mm-hmm.
I know you want me to mention Castlevania, so let's just say...
Well, I'm not going to mention it.
Let's say the Castlevania version is coming out. I think it's the first 3 NES games. So, earlier I was talking about slippery platformer controls. I hope they get it right. Because the original games had fairly tight controls because they had to. What I've noticed with platform reports is there's a very brief delay in the transition from an NES port or an arcade port or something. There can be a brief delay between button press and action on screen, and depending on what you're playing, it either doesn't matter, like you adjust for it, or it absolutely destroys you. The old Castlevania games, they're not the easiest games. So they definitely need to make sure it's not one of those destroy you delays.
Yes. Yeah, I can imagine that would be extremely frustrating if that was the case.
It can be. Yeah. Those stupid Medusa heads will kill you a lot.
Yeah.
But I want to go back to the Padre.
Please.
Unravel the mystery of a missing cardinal by solving the riddle of a demonic power you did not expect to encounter. Face your inner demons and fight the power of evil while it seduces your soul. Play as the wittiest pop culture referencing priest in video game history and face an ultimate game over if you make the angels cry you a river. So I literally had not heard about this until about an hour ago. It's a retro 3D horror adventure game. So it kind of looks like it was inspired by the original Silent Hill, like that kind of pseudo top-down, what's the word I want? Isometric view. Yeah, I don't know. It looks kind of fun. It looks like it's not taking itself too seriously, but you would not call it like a parody. It's not even pixely. It's blocky. Like it looks like they built the whole damn thing in Minecraft.
Yeah, he seems to have like a Lego head almost, the guy from that
picture. Yeah.
So.
I mean, like the developer's called Shotgun with Glitters, so I feel like that's kind of what you need to know about how they've approached this. It's not a full-on parody, but it's not like super dreary and it doesn't take itself too seriously from what I've seen. Yeah. Definitely something I'm going to check out.
Yeah, that does sound interesting. I didn't see that either till you mentioned it. Yeah. Very
hmm
interesting. And then look, it would be
literally had not heard about this game until an hour ago.
yeah. See, isn't it lucky you joined me today? You know, you would have gone on living your life perfectly fine without knowing about the Padre, but now you know.
Or I would have just, seen it a couple of days from now when I browse the new releases.
Oh, well, look, that might have happened, but let's go with the other possibility. It's better for me with that. So, look, it would be remiss of us if we didn't get the weekly offering out, and it is definitely upon us. The Devious Dungeon 2. Did you ever play the first Devious Dungeon, Mindy?
I did not.
It's actually not bad. It's not bad. So hopefully 2 will be the same. It's one of their better efforts, and for the first one you had to play the whole game, so I assume this one will be of similar nature, hopefully. So that's exciting. And it's cross-buy as well, so there'll be another 6 stacks of that probably as we go. And then the only other thing as well, this Darkwood as well, which a survival horror game as well. So this potentially could be good. I watched a trailer of it, so I'm not sure. The trailer didn't show a lot of the actual gameplay, I will admit, but it does sound interesting. So there's a couple of things there that, now that we look, that could be good. If you're not a Rage 2 enthusiast, you might find something else along there, and if you just want the talking head, then just get it. Why not? Don't feel that you have to play
return the game.
Yeah, you don't have to play the game. That's overrated. But the head, that's for real. So let's see. We're getting close to the topic, which is exciting. So also, listeners,
we are. I do want to mention. Sorry,
Please.
I do want to mention one
Yes,
more
I
because
forgot.
this looks strangely adorable.
Mm-hmm.
It is a game called Feudal Alloy. Let's see. Atu is an ordinary fish-controlled farmer robot who lives in a small cottage in sunflower fields. He'd been living a simple but pleasant life until a bunch of outlaws attacked the village, stole their oil supplies, and burnt his house. Fortunately, he managed to grab his old sword and fled into the woods.
So how do you feel about the fish-controlled farmer robot genre, Mindy?
I think it's just it's new territory, I suppose.
It really is, isn't it?
It looks kind of cute. I'm digging the art style. It's kind of a hand drawn. The shading is interesting. It kind of like visually, just the way it's presented. It kind of reminds me of Valiant Hearts. It's that weird kind of hand drawn. Like I can't quite place what I'm trying to say here, but like there's a style to it. It's like a hand drawn layer on layer on layer. Like nothing's pre rendered, and then they put the character on. It feels like kind of older animation where they literally draw the background cell and then put the next layer cell on it and then put the next layer cell on it until you get that depth effect.
Yeah, it does look. I mean, yeah, it does look very interesting. Yeah, it's a good description too. I like that. So I don't know. Well, one thing I'm noticing.
Sometimes when I flail around, I nail what I want to say, and sometimes I don't.
Look, I just talk, and whatever comes out comes out. That's usually the easiest approach I find. But what I was going to say is that I've noticed this. Like I keep track of the store fairly closely, but since we started doing this, there are a lot of indie games coming out every week, and you could really just play indie games now, couldn't you? Like you don't have to play AAA anything anymore. There's so much stuff.
No, and if you want variety, that's where you're going to go.
Yeah,
because like I said a little earlier, there's like 3 genres. If you're going AAA or even AA, there's like 3 genres, and that's just what you're playing. That's
right.
Oh, it looks like Feudal Alloy is a Metroidvania, actually.
Well, look, there you go. I'm not getting it. Excellent. I want to have a go at the fish-controlled robot, though. I really do. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. But that's right up your alley. You should get that.
It's like Earthworm Jim. Like it's like a body, and then the animal is the head of the body.
Yeah, sort of trapped there. Probably not his idea.
It's just there in a little tank, so it looks like a robot body, and then there's just a fish tank on top.
You wonder if, because the fish has a 5-second memory, you wonder if it's going to be like a little roguelike, you just sort of go 5 seconds and then you start again, and then 5 seconds.
Oh, God, I hope again. Not.
No, Metroidvania, probably not, but that's actually a really good idea. If anyone wants to take that idea and make it, I recommend Dreams. I'm not sponsored by them. And
well, that game does kind of exist, and it's actually pretty good, and it's called Minute.
Yes, that is true.
It's that game where you die every 60 seconds.
Yeah, you're not a fish.
And so it's not a roguelike. The whole idea is you do 1 or 2 steps of a puzzle and then
Yeah.
you die, but those steps remain finished, but you have to, you know.
Yeah. So yeah, I actually hadn't thought of that, but you're 100% correct. That's right. Yeah, that's a great game in it as well. Yeah. So look, is there any more in there? We found quite a lot.
No, I think
Yeah,
unless
the
there's something
rest
else
can.
for you.
No, definitely not. The rest can pass. So it was nice to talk about some fun games there for a while because I don't know, listeners, and if you're keeping up on the state of play, literally, you would have noticed that Sony did do their state of play this week on the 9th of May, I believe. So this time it was shorter experience, which was most appreciated. I think it was 13 minutes in total, so down by 6 minutes, if that interests you from the first iteration, which was all about VR. So this time it was not about VR, so that was nice. This time it was really the Capcom Monster Hunter expansion show. That's what they started with. So, if you're into that game, that is fantastic. They showed quite a lot of non-gameplay footage, which was lovely. I think with a little bit of gameplay footage crossed in at the end or whatever else. So that went on for a while, and that comes out. When does it come out? The 9th of June. So I don't know. Does Monster Hunter interest you at all, Mindy? Will you be? It's a massive game.
It is massive. I'm not disinterested. I don't think I'll be playing it. I didn't play Pokemon past, red, blue, and yellow. So I can't imagine diving into Monster Hunter, which is more refined, more involved.
Yes, yeah.
Than
It's definitely involved.
than
That game.
Pokemon.
Yeah, it's not. It's a game you have to learn. I think.
Which is not
look,
which is not an insult, by the way. I realize that sounded like an
no.
insult. It's not.
I just think I'm all for this. I'm back on Final Fantasy 14, so I'm a sucker for all these type of MMOs and this type of game. So I have no problem with it. But I just think when you're showing games to represent your platform, and you spend what in effect was 25% of that presentation on an expansion for this game, I understand it sold massively, but I don't know. I think it was too much for me. I think the people that are interested in that game, will find it either way. So it was interesting they started with that. I think it shows the state of where Sony's maybe at for the rest of this year. So with what's coming. So they showed that. They showed, I don't know, this game called Away, which did look interesting as the survival series, where you play as a bat. And it's sort of you against yeah, well, I don't know. It's you against nature, if you like, the other animals and things. So, it's a sort of a survival game, but played as an animal, I suppose, as opposed to a person. It looked interesting. But again, no gameplay footage. That was all, whatever, just, cutscenes and things. So, I don't know. That's coming at some point this year, I believe. What else did they show? Medieval releases, which, that is of interest to many people I know. So, that's great. Or whatever else. And then they showed, well, I don't know, this might excite you, Mindy. They showed the Final Fantasy VII Remake. They showed a little bit of gameplay.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. A very little bit, I would say.
See, I haven't been following that because I just assumed it was going to come out in 6 years.
Yes.
So I was like, there's no point in getting hyped now.
No.
It's Square Enix. They announced something and it comes out 20 years later. So
that's right. Yeah, they showed about a minute, and I'm probably convinced that's about all that they've actually made at this point. And I'm definitely not hyped either because I don't think this will happen in my lifetime. But for the next couple of generations behind us, that'll be something to look forward to when that does release. And of course, we have a limited edition PS4 coming as well. Another one. So, if you want to drop another 400 on that, by all means, it's a lovely steel grey color. So, look, I don't want to sound like I'm ragging on it because obviously I am. I don't know. I don't understand these things, who they're for and what they're trying to do, why they don't show gameplay, why it's all rendered probably on a high-end PC, this stuff. And I don't know. I don't know who they're marketing these to or whatever else. So, it is what it is, I suppose. But I don't think that was anything if you missed it. So I'm dismissive, but I think many people. I actually like the first one as well, the VR one. So I think this is a little bit of a step back. But let's not talk on the negative because that's boring and redundant.
I do want to know what the special edition PS4 is, though.
It just looked like a normal PS4, but it's still grey, and it had the button control images printed on the side. That's all it was. So it didn't didn't do anything extra like make you a coffee or run as good as the Xbox or anything like that. So I don't.
So it kind of sounds like they screwed up a whole bunch of printings of PS4s and then decided to call it a special
I didn't
edition.
consider that. Yeah. Oh, Gary on the production line pressed the wrong button, and now we have a series of limited edition consoles. Oh, that could well be.
Damn it, Gary.
Yeah, damn it, Gary. Not again, Gary. We just had the limited edition last year. What are you doing to us? I don't know. But look, I mean, even you're sort of struggling for things to put in a 13 minutes minus 3 minutes for Monster Hunter when you put in a limited edition console bit because you don't have another game to show at this point. So Gary might have saved them there. I think. I don't know. Anyway, we shall see. Maybe it'll change color for the next one, hopefully. So anyway, why don't we move on to the topic today, Minty?
All right, and this is I gotta say this is going to be more of a kind of a truncated debate because this topic I actually think you could debate for quite a while, but I know we're already about an hour into this podcast, and I am not the most pleasant person to listen to. So,
well, we'll do what we can on it. So the topic is: are walking simulators games? So this is off the back primarily of What Remains of Edith Finch becoming available this week PS Plus. So I know a lot of people had played it before. Hopefully a lot of people have played it now. I will just put a preface in at this point that it might be a good idea.
Spoilers.
Yes.
Spoiler alert.
Definitely. It might be a good idea to stop now and play this game first or just not listen to this part at all if it does work. Because I will not guarantee that we won't say things that will spoil the game. The game is very short. You can play it in like an hour and a half. So, just stop, go play it if that interests you. And if you don't, then just listen and be forewarned. Yeah, I think that's fair to say. So, Mindi, why don't we jump straight in? First off, I want to know, what did you think of this What Remains of Edith Finch?
Yeah, I liked it. And it kind of sounds like you didn't.
Well, no, I loved it. But I want to hear about what you think of it and why and is it a game, I suppose.
So I am of the opinion that walking simulators are games, provided they tell an actual story. So I'm trying to remember, there's a game that's a walking simulator. I think it takes place in like a graveyard, and it's just nothing. It's just literally you walk to the other side of the graveyard and it's done. It looks like a tech demo, basically. I think when people seriously deride walking, and these are more kind of on PC, there haven't been a ton of walking simulators released on console. There really haven't. A lot of things that people would call that some would call walking simulators are more first-person adventure games because you actually have to do stuff. There's actually puzzle solving in it. That puts it more into a first-person adventure game territory.
Okay, so if there was light puzzling, you put it more in that category than a walking sim, would you say? Or
yeah, it's a case-by-case thing because you could argue that half the games on these lists have light puzzle solving. CJ and I have a list of probably 6 or 7 games that are considered walking simulators. Like one of the ones on this list is Layers of Fear. That one really straddles between, I would call that little more like a first person adventure game. Really what it is it's a YouTube screamer.
Yes.
It exists for people to make reaction videos on YouTube, but because Layers of Fear had actual, let's call them puzzles, I would push that a little more towards first-person adventure game than walking simulator, but the bulk of that game is certainly a walking simulator. Another one would be, and it was one we had on and I took it out, Blackwood Crossing. If you Google like, PS4 walking simulators, this one will be on a lot of lists. It's a first-person adventure game. Again, a lot of walking, but it's a first-person adventure game.
Yeah. Okay, that's a good clarification to make because I hadn't considered that. Yeah, that's good.
What it comes down to is the term adventure game is such a huge umbrella. It's such a huge, and there's a whole lot of subcategories like point and click and hidden object and walking simulator is definitely under this umbrella of adventure game. But under that, you've got like the first person adventure, and then you've got just the pure walking simulator. So what Remains of Edith Finch, I would call a walking simulator. There's no solving. If you're listening to the narration, you know where you need to go, and you're just exploring and you're reading notes, or there's no puzzles. Like, you're pressing a button to open something. The most involved gameplay in that game is and I don't remember any of the names. It's near the end. It's the dude in the canning factory with the fish.
Lewis, yes. Lewis.
Yeah, and so one stick, you're doing this repetitive motion of cutting the fish's head off and throwing it onto the conveyor belt, and the other stick, you're navigating a labyrinth. I'd say that's the biggest gameplay in that game. So Edith Finch, I would firmly call a walking sim. And I know we're going to round back and talk about Edith Finch. Firewatch.
Yes.
I would definitely call that one a walking sim. I really liked Firewatch too. I really liked Firewatch. Journey, that's more adventure.
Yes.
A lot of walking, but remember, there's platforming in it. Puzzle solving. That's an adventure game.
And I mean, taking that premise as well, I like, and I think this is what maybe defines it, as you say, is that it has a strong narrative. I mean, Journey has a narrative that's created by the player, doesn't it? So it's not a fixed narrative.
Correct.
And I mean, even if it has a narrative at all, is subjective. I think very subjective there. So yeah, I would agree with you there. Sorry, carry on.
I'm just going down this list we made. Everybody gone to the Rapture. Yes. That's a walking sim. That is 100% a walking sim. And it's a slow walking sim. And Abzu. Abzu, it's a walking sim where you swim. I have played this game. I feel like there's some door opening puzzles in it, but the majority is going to be walking or swimming sims. So, roundabout to answer the question before we just talk about Edith Finch, because I know that's what we're going to do. I consider walking sims games as long as there's actual substance to it, like a narrative, as opposed to, like I said, and this is more something you will find on PC, because the majority of these games are going to be on PC. Actually, I think every game on this list, except for Journey, was PC before it came on console. But the majority of walking sims you're going to find on PC, and a lot of them are just, I'm going to walk from here to here. Look how pretty this is. There's words or images popping up, and then we're done. And you fall into that trap of, we're trying to evoke emotion, or we're trying to evoke depth, when you're really not saying anything at all.
No. So just now that we've sort of defined it, which I think is good, before we move into it, I'm just going to ask you, why do you think that a lot of people dislike walking sims? Because there is a lot of people that do not like them. Why do you think that is?
I think, I think it comes down to one's own definition of what a video game is.
Yes.
So if you're the kind of person who says, a video game is bang, bang, shoot, shoot, you're going to look at a walking sim and say, you're not a game. I have met one or two people who are super hardcore, like, gaming is Call of Duty, or it is, you have to have action and, explosions, etc., who will say things like, even, point and clicks are not video games. They have lumped that all under with, like, the casual gamers, Whereas generally when someone says a casual gamer, they're talking someone who plays, like, Candy Crush.
Yeah.
Or Angry Birds. Kind of the mobile gamer section of being a gamer. So for people who say that video games are shooty, shooty, bang, bang, because that's kind of what they were in the 80s. It was arcade games and running gunners, and there weren't a whole lot of narrative games unless you went into the JRPGs, just because there wasn't space for it, there wasn't cartridge space for it. So the majority of games were those kind of, run gun, whatever genre that. like I said, unless you were getting into JRPGs, that's when you started getting the stories. So I think you kind of got this split where you've got gamers who just say, unless there's a high score or I'm shooting something or, whatever, it's not a video game. Or you get these people who say, well, actually, I recognize your argument and I recognize your genre of games, but also there are these games that are more about the story than the actual Twitch response or the actual I am coordinating my reflexes with the character on screen.
Yeah, I think that's a good enough. I agree with you. I think it's tied up in the gameplay. I mean, it's definitely a different pace, these sort of games. So I wonder if that has a lot to it. So now that we sort of we've outlined it and done that, before we sort of specifically
wait, do you think they are games? We haven't answered that yet.
Yeah, look, I do, and I think I come from the same point of view based around the narrative. I think these games are all about the story. Now, whether some of them have anything to say or not is another question, but I think I do think they're games. I don't think they're passive experiences. I mean, you still have to move, you still have to engage with them to a degree, to move the story and the narrative on. I think it's a far more, whether it games or not, and whether you agree whether they are or not, I think is subjective. I don't think it really matters. Whether you think that it has anything to say, though, I think does. And what I like about walking simulators is that they're becoming more abstract, I think, over time. I think that's just the nature of any sort of art form, that it will become abstract till it eventually breaks. And then, it will come back. Like this happens all the time in literature, music, art, everything. So I think the question more is, does it have anything valid to say? Is it worth your time to play as a game, or is it just filler, I suppose? So with that in mind,
and that's the danger with abstract. I kind of touched on this a little earlier.
Yes.
Was there's a difference between being interpretable and not actually saying anything and having the illusion of saying something.
That is 100%. Yeah. So that's.
And I don't know how you can really differentiate. Like all I can say is there's a feeling. Like I think I said this a couple weeks ago. Like where the bees make honey is this kind. It's not a walking sim, but it is telling a story. And my issue with that was I feel like the whole thing is supposed to evoke nostalgia, and that's great. But I feel like the only story this game is actually telling is known to the developer.
Yes. Yeah, I see what you mean there.
You know what I mean? And so you either kind of get it or you don't. And I feel like that's kind of the wrong kind of abstract to me. Whereas something like, I can't even think of an example. I would say the good kind of abstract is, it is interpretable. It is clear that there is actually I do have an example for this, kind of. So another walking sim I didn't mention was Gone Home, which was free on Plus a couple of years back. It has that infamous beat the game in under 60 seconds trophy.
That's right.
Which is kind of funny, but also a pain to get. So what I liked about I played it on PC when it came out. I got a review code for it ages ago. What I liked about Gone Home was that you have this kind of setup trope of so the whole story of Gone Home is this girl comes home and she's looking for her missing sister. Her sister has just left a note that says, adios. And so you're trying to figure out what happened to your sister. And there are these standard kind of the house is haunted tropes. Like you see these red streaks walking, these kind of red streaks, and the TV turns on its own. So you're thinking, oh God, the house is haunted. She's dead, whatever. But if you explore, you can find mundane answers for why these things are happening. You can pick up a bill that says the wiring in the house is faulty and hasn't been fixed yet. You can find an empty bottle of red hair dye. That's what I like. There's a story and you can tell it different ways, and both of them will make sense. That's a good kind of abstract for me, is when you can get two people seeing the same thing and saying and telling two stories that will make sense with it, as opposed to, here's a bunch of random images. Good luck. We're going to tell you this means something, and maybe it does, but unless it's clear enough to several, different people, that's not. I feel like I'm not really hitting on what I'm trying to say. I hope I'm hinting at, or I'm broadly defining enough that you and listeners will understand what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I think like to sort of my perspective on what you're saying there is I think that these walking simulators require engagement from the player in a different way to the shooting games or whatever you were referencing before, and I think they also, I mean, like I know as we're moving to Edith Finch, I know there are a lot of people that don't like that game at all, and there are obviously a lot of people that do like that game. So there's a wide mix there, and I think a lot of these, and again, I think that the Bees Make Honey is not a good game, so I'm not going to defend that or talk about it in any way. But I think these games that arguably are better or critically acclaimed or whatever, I think they require a level of engagement and honesty, in that you have to be prepared to sort of see yourself in that position, because I think the ones that do have something to say, they have a lot to say, and I think it's a very deep sort of comment sometimes, and it's whether you're prepared to acknowledge that's what it's saying or whether you even see it. And I think that's why.
So it makes you a participant instead of an observer.
I think so, and I think that is why at the crux. And again, this could just be in my own opinion, obviously, but I think some of the reason why people don't like these games is because they never make that distinction, whether they don't want to, whether they're not honest enough in their own gameplay of that game, or whether they just don't even want to commit to it, which is is fine, personal choice. But I think for these games to work, you have to see yourself in that situation, and that's why that Bees Make Honey, I feel, is not a good game, because it's just, I mean, there are design flaws all over the place, but there is nothing there that engages me to be in that character. For myself, I didn't think the writing was strong enough. I didn't think whatever else. And I'm not, again, it is what it is. Whereas you say something like Gone Home, like, I don't know for yourself, but I felt like I was a participant in that story. In such a way, not like an Assassin's Creed game where I'm the character. It's almost like I'm an intimate member, a fly on the wall as this is going on. I'm riding on the character's shoulder or the whatever, the shoulder, and you're part of it. And I think for them to work, I think you have to find yourself drawn in that way. So obviously not everyone will be, and for not every game everyone will be. It will differ. But I wonder if that is the difference in that, why we think some are better than others or whatever else. But that is very subjective. So with that sort of in mind, you said you liked Edith Finch. That's correct? Or
yeah, I
talk
did.
to that.
I did. I really did. And this kind of goes back to what I just said about participant versus observer. You are definitely the participant in Edith Finch. One of the things I like about it, and I think most people will say, is the fact that they switched up the gameplay quite a bit in this game. So it's not just I'm walking around and I'm looking for notes for 3 hours and then the game's over. It's one of them is a first person. I'm not going to call it platforming, but it's just kind of figure out where the point is to press the button so you can jump. That was, I think, the first one. That was Molly.
That's right, with the cat. Yes.
One of them is that one I was talking about with the, you're cutting the fish off at the cannery, but you're also playing this progressively more intricate kind of fantasy game on the left side. One of them is just a flip book. Like, you just hold down the button and it's an animated actual flip book telling part of the story. One of them is a comic book that just plays out, and sometimes you are controlling the character in the comic book, or it's just playing. It's like a Tales from the Crypt comic book. I liked that. It kept things interesting. It wasn't just, here's a house, walk around and look for journal entries.
That's exactly right. So it's basically bringing that approach to you, isn't it? As opposed to, here's a note, read it yourself. It's making you live the experience. Yeah, I think that is.
There is stuff you can find that's, you can look at pictures on the wall and stuff and get different commentary in it.
Yeah.
But every like note you have to pick up or whatever is a segue into the next part of the story. It's not I have walked from point A to B. I'm picking up a note and reading it to get the next bit of story. It's I am walking from A to B. Here is my next interaction point. Now let's unfold more of this story through gameplay, as opposed to just here's an exposition dump.
And I think the characters, like the family members, are very well crafted, because I deny anyone to play this game honestly and say that they don't associate with at least one of the characters in there. I think that would be bullshit, and I think you would not be being honest, and you've missed the whole point of it. They're so different, but they so well represent different feelings you would have as part of the human experience, that I think it would be unfathomable to play this game and not think at least one point, wow, I've seen something like that in myself, or I understand what that is actually like. And I think that's the strength of this game, is that it really has, I mean, not every experience you're going to identify with there, but
So you identify with having a family death curse?
no, I don't think so. I see where you're going there. I want to go back, because I think with a lot of these games, it's easy just to say the narrative and that's what the game is, but sort of look.
No, I don't think it is at all, actually.
Yeah, to take that.
What I really like about this game is, and this is my English major coming out, all of the narrators are unreliable, and I like that. It's a tricky thing to pull off, an unreliable narrator. I think sometimes I don't think they got quite right. Majority of it I think they did. And this kind of goes back a little bit to ambiguity and interpretation. Like the comic books, for those who haven't played it, ostensibly the story is that the Finch family has like a death curse. Like everyone dies either really early or just really in really odd ways, right? And they're convinced that there's the family has a curse, when most rational people would say, no, this is just a really unlucky family. Like it's just you've had all these tragic deaths over 2 or 3 generations of your family, and that really sucks, but like it's not a curse.
But see, this is where I would argue that is the base narrative of the game, and I think you could play that, and that's what you would see, and that is what it is. That is the overarching thing. But the way they've done it in the individual stories, I mean, some of the deaths are absurd, like the boy on the swing. And he's going around and around, but that's not I don't think that has anything to do with his death. Obviously something, it's a perspective of his twin. So obviously it's, exaggerated and whatever else presented in that light. But that is a clear, I mean, one of his final lines is, that he finally learned how to fly. Like, I think it's a lot deeper than that. And I think it doesn't do games like this credit to just say, oh, it's the story of people dying or whatever else, and then an unlucky family. I think they put that stuff like that in there to provide some base narrative. But I think some of these things like that, I think that's far more the point.
The kid on the swing, I mean, you look at that swing, it was built at the edge of a cliff.
But see, this is the perspective. Do you really believe? Like, I believe the kid died. But I don't believe he died from flying off the end of the swing. And I don't think that's what it is.
I think that was one of the more straightforward ones to me. I think it was this kid who was obsessed with flying. Because of that, he was the kind of kid who would say, I want to see how high I can get in this swing. And I think that one was pretty straightforward. Is he went higher and higher and higher. He got way too high up, lost his grip on the swing, and the motion of the swing just propelled him off of the swing over the cliff, and he died.
Look, I agree with you. Physically that may be a stretch is into what happened, but he actually says, the twin says, this is it was the day that he made up his mind to fly. And I think it's like I see what you're saying is a physical representation, but I think it's alluding to, and the reason I don't think this is going too deep, because I think many of them do, it's alluding to just giving up, to just not being held back by anything. I think it's far more deeper than just flying off the edge of the cliff or whatever else. I think it's this release, and the reason, like, we'll go the other one that I think is, I mean, really, really, tests you if you connect with it, is the one where his Lewis is in the canning factory. So it's a very dark tale. That's a tale about escapism, not being able to deal with the real world, not wanting to deal with the real world. I mean, that's what that is about. There's no two ways about it. And I think that's a very powerful segment to a gamer, because I think many gamers associate with that. Now, whether they choose to acknowledge that or not, and I think if you do choose to acknowledge it, that is probably the hardest part of the game to play, because I would defy anyone not to see some point of their life as you haven't worked in a can factory maybe, but not having that what he's doing is he's doing the same monotonous task over and over again, and he's just left. He's just left. He's in his own mind now. And I think one of the amazing things about that scene is,
wasn't he also detoxing though?
Well, he
like, I feel like there was some chemical
yes, he was. So
aspect of that
he
as well.
had been detoxing, but it does say that this went over a period of time, like a year. So I think he was clean by this point, but that was definitely at the start. And I think that's also maybe making a comment to taking drugs and psychotic breaks or whatever else, perhaps. But that aside or whatever, one of the most interesting gameplay mechanics of that is that while you're doing all this fantasy escapism stuff, you're still chopping the fish with the other stick. And the monotony.
That's so cool. That is so cool.
That is one of the.
And what's cool about it is the fantasy stuff, the more you get into it, takes over more of the screen.
Yeah.
So when it was just a split 50-50 thing, when it was split 50-50, the fantasy part was a top-down, you just walk through a maze. Then it gets isometric view, and the screen portion of that gets a little bigger. And then it becomes like a full-on first-person, relatively well-rendered, like medieval area, and it takes up the whole screen. And every once in a while, you'll have this fish come in, and you still have to, if you don't want to build them up, you still have to cut the fish and sending off. It's just you can't see the chopper or the conveyor belt anymore. That's so cool.
It is so cool. And one of the points in that, and this is, if you played through this and you think I'm full of shit, which is totally fine, I argue that you go back, because you can at the end of the game just go back and play memories. You don't have to play the whole game again, I believe. Is that correct? So it's been a while since I played it. I think that's correct.
Yes.
For cleanup. So you could just go straight to that one if you finish the game or whatever and see. But one of the points in that thing where it's becoming more and more fantasy, and because he's talking to his psychologist, well, that's the voice you hear from the letter, and he says to her, it's my choice now, or something to this effect. It's my choice, and my imagination is my reality. And like that's that's a psychotic break, obviously, but that's it's just showing, I think, that it's just when you've been pushed in, and the other side is better. And that's clearly what, he's working in a dark factory. They purposely made it dull. There's no lights. He's doing the same monotonous thing. It's exaggerated to the max, obviously, to create that sense. But, and then the other side, it's very bright. It's very light. He's the king, whatever else. So it's as far on the extremes as you can make it, which I think is clever, because I think you don't want to be too subtle. Otherwise, people might miss it. But it's so extreme. And the way that finishes, that's biblical, whatever you like. He's ascending up the conveyor belt, and at the same time, he's coronating a coronation of his fantasy kingdom. So, he's not dying there. He's being released to the next level. That's what he believes or what he feels. And I just think that, to me, I found that I will never forget that thing. That is probably the most powerful thing I've played in gaming, and I would rank that up there with some of the other music, whatever else, that has really moved me. I think it's phenomenal, that particular thing. So I don't want to harp on it, because I know I'm preaching.
Well, I think part of the metaphor of it is you get the feeling. So when you're walking around this house, it's like a shrine. This is a family that doesn't talk about all these people who've died. What they do is they lock the person, and they drill like a peephole in the door, so you can know the family history. But they don't. You get this feeling that they just don't talk about this. So I think what happens is the story becomes your interpretation of what you've seen through this people. So like one of the one with the, like I said, the Tales from the Crypt comic book, right? If you look in the people, and I'm so bad with names. Molly was a little girl. This
is Barbara.
Barbara,
yeah, the child star.
So Barbara was a child actor, and she was in these like monster movies, right? But Barbara lived to be in her like mid-20s or something like that. But if you look in Barbara's room, there's all this memorabilia of when she was in these kind of schlock horror movies, right? And so the comic book plays out, it tells the story of her death, and it tells the story of all these monsters who this monster who's like chasing her through the house. She fights it off, and like classic, movie trope, she hits it, it falls off the balcony. And by the way, I love the attention to detail in this game, because you can go and look at the same balcony before you ever see this, and you can see this balcony has been repaired. And then you play through and you find out why. Great, really great detail. You find out that the character you're playing as is like 6 months pregnant, and you could have any point have looked down and seen your pregnant stomach from the beginning of the game, and you just didn't. I like that. It's really good detail. I like it. Anyway, so Barbara, she fights off the attacker. He falls off the balcony in classic movie fashion. She looks away to go downstairs. He's gone. And then like 6 different monsters come in and kill her, right? So you kind of think, "Oh, that's weird." You think about it logically and say, "Well, obviously it's not monsters. It's some sort of home invasion. It was there were robbers that showed up, or crazed fans. Some group came in and killed her, right?" And so you kind of think, well, why? Yes, she's a child star, but why is it this kind of extreme with everyone with the monster masks? And then you think about what it's like for this family that might not talk about these subjects, and all you know is that Aunt Barbara or Cousin Barbara or whatever the relationship is died. And so you look in the peephole in a room, and all you see is monster movie stuff. You might think if you're
by association.
Yeah, if you're a child or whatever the association is, Cousin Barbara died, all I see are monster stuff. She got killed by the monsters. With the kid in the swing, you look in his room, all you see is space stuff. All you see is spaceships, astronaut helmets, and all you know is that he flew off the swing, or whatever. It would not be a leap for the association of someone just looking into this peephole without ever interacting with this person's life is to say he flew away, and that sounds silly, right? But the only kind of sticking point for me with this is the first one, is young little Molly.
Yes.
And what gets me with this is it's so different, and it's odd because it's the first one in the game.
That's right, yeah.
And it's this little girl who gets sent to bed without food. And so the first part of it is you walking around her room with stuff to eat. And one of these things she eats are like holly or mistletoe berries, which are poisonous. If you have cats, you're not supposed to leave them out, right? Because the cats will eat them and then they'll die. I suppose, and they can make humans very sick. I suppose it's not a huge stretch. I kind of feel like it is, but I feel like it's not a huge stretch to say they could kill a human. And that's what I think they're going with, is she ate these because she was very hungry. She ate these berries and then died, right?
Well, she hallucinated and then died. I think that's what happened.
Yeah, she hallucinated and then died. And I'm just talking about, and that makes sense. But when I'm talking about my interpretation just by looking through the peephole theory, so she hallucinates. So she turns into a cat and she's chasing this bird around, and then she turns into a owl, and then she turns into a shark, that was kind of funny. Like I almost checked out, honestly, when we turned into a shark and it turned into third person and I'm controlling a shark. I was like, come on, man. And then you turn into this like sea monster, like almost like an octopus or something. And but all you control is the tentacle. And so you're this tentacle and you're going around and you're eating these sailors, and then you go into this pipe that leads up through the toilet of Molly's bathroom and under her bed, and then you kill her. Given my hypothesis of where these metaphors come from, from people looking for their people, it doesn't track with Molly.
No.
But I like my theory so much because it works for everyone else.
Yeah. Well, I think you're dead on. I think that one starting off is a very interesting choice. And I think if that's all you played of the game up to there, I could fully understand that you do not think it's a good game and you have no time for it. I think that one requires a huge, like a divergence in thinking, in that you have to realize that she never left that room and that she's dying and hallucinating. If you don't fully, accept that at that point, the leap you're taking, then it looks like she's become a cat and then she's become a shark and then it's just random. It's all random. And I think that realization comes later on in the game when you start to see it happen more and more. Like you said, with the rooms, you see these things. I mean, at the end of the Barbara one, it portrays her that she was happy to be killed that way because it's, exactly what she wanted. But that would not have been reality. But that is the reality of the protagonist's perspective, and it's, as you say, the room has led them to that,
Well,
and
because she got
whatever else.
to be a scream queen again, right? Because her whole thing
That's
was
right.
she wasn't in movies anymore.
That's exactly right. So it's all built on this perspective. And the only other one that I wanted to touch on was the guy that's living under the house. And in effect, he's too scared to leave. That is Barbara's brother. I forget his name. Sorry, Walton, maybe, or whatever it was. It doesn't matter. And he's living under there, and he's too scared to leave for 30 years. And then one day he's just like, I can't live this day anymore. I'm going to leave. He leaves. He dies. It's hit by a train, which is ironic. A train which could not have existed either, because as you play that section, there is no track on that side. So I don't know. It just goes to the ocean. So he didn't.
Well,
die
actually, if you look, I wondered this myself because so Walter's thing is the monster is at the door, and it is always at the door at noon, right?
Yes.
And then finally, he's like, I haven't heard the monster in a couple of days, right?
Yes.
So this is the one that I get it, and I also don't. So like,
yes.
Obviously the 12 o'clock, that's the train going through, and then the way he exits. And what I think is really interesting is he's living in like a bunker under the house. What I think is really interesting is he doesn't just go back up the ladder into the house.
No.
Like,
right.
if you poke around a bit, you realize that Edith, no, Edith is the one you're playing as. Edie Finch. Who's the old one? That's Edie Finch.
Yes.
Is that Edie is bringing him food. Like, he's got these stocks of food, but she's also bringing him, like, refreshing his stock. So it's not like he's totally trapped down there. It's not the trap or the hatch when you actually go to investigate it is not padlocked. He's not stuck down there. He's just living down there.
No, it's
so
self-imposed.
What I find interesting is that when he decides that he's going to leave, he doesn't just go up the ladder and into the house. He gets a sledgehammer and breaks through the wall and walks straight outside, and it leads out onto this train track, right? And you're saying there's no, I don't know how the logistics of that works, but you're saying there's no track. If you actually walk to the edge of that track a bit, you can look as Edith, obviously.
Yes.
You can actually look down and see this crumbled land with some railroad tracks in the water.
That's true.
So it sounds like what happened was the reason it stopped, the monster went away, was whatever that section of track is, crumbled.
Yes, right.
Where that doesn't track with me is what killed him. It's not like unless it like literally had just crumbled.
Yeah. Well, I think,
and the train was coming and it hit him. But then the question is, well, why didn't he hear the train at all for the week before that?
I think, there are many interpretations obviously here, but I think personally the one that I take for me here is that I think he did leave, and I don't think the train. I think that was just a metaphor for what killed him was his fear. That's what killed him. And when he got out there, he makes a comment, I'll just take any day. I think perhaps it was just too much for him. He would have been older by that point anyway. Maybe he had a heart attack or something. I don't know. But I think, even maybe he never left either. There's the possibility there too. But follow the logical line that he did. I think that it's his fear that killed him. And that was the point of it, that he couldn't sort of leave. And I think that I think it's all. I think you have to suspend animation, suspend belief. Like at the end, she supposedly in the dream walks out to the house, or there's a house half in the water, I think that these people, as you say, they're presented to really believe this does happen to them. So they're, disposed to like, I mean, if you feel you're going to be sick, you can make yourself very sick. If you get into that mindset, it is possible. So I think if you believe that this will happen to you, then maybe it does happen. And I think that's sort of, or can happen. And I mean, maybe as we sort of round out of this, I want to ask you, do you think, considering the ending as well, do you think this is a positive, a game, like, do you think there's hope in this game? Do
I
you
don't
think, or do you think there is no hope
I
for,
don't think
for
there's
what it's
either.
preaching?
I think it's just kind of a series of snapshots, you know? It's just kind of the next generation thing. I feel like what happens here is, at least this is my interpretation, is for the first time there is an attempt to explain in rational terms that it's not a curse, it's just a series of tragedies in this family. To kind of break that cycle of we are under a curse, because Edith is journaling this for her kid that she's pregnant with, and saying, I'm giving you this is the history of the family that we don't talk about. And I think it's an attempt to say this isn't a curse, it's just things sucked for our family for a really long time.
Well, see, I think, I think it goes even a step further. And if you've come this far, listener, you've been well warned of spoilers. We basically spoiled the whole game, but this
We just spoiled the whole game.
This will
The only
just,
thing we didn't spoil, and I'm gonna, because it was brutal, it was
yes.
surprisingly brutal, is when you play as a baby.
Oh, yes, I forgot about that. Yes, in the
I was kind of surprised you didn't bring that up.
Yes.
Where you are like a 2-year-old child who died, and you died by drowning in a bathtub.
Yes.
And you're just in this bathtub, and as soon as you're in this location, you know what's going to happen.
That's right. All while Tchaikovsky is playing in the background.
It's not pussyfooting around it. No. It's not, hey, I'm going to turn into a cat and let's figure out how she died.
Yes.
As soon as you realize you're looking at the backstory of a 2-year-old child bathtub, you know what's going to happen. And so you're just kind of forced to sit there and watch as this bathtub just kind of fills up and fills up and fills up, and you drown.
That's right. And just, I mean, you're right, it's completely, that is totally brutal. And the other fantastic thing, I don't know if you picked up on the reference, but throughout that whole thing is the Waltz of the Flowers by Tchaikovsky is playing.
That's another thing. The music in this game is fantastic.
Yes, yeah. But as he gets sucked down the hole, perceived, obviously it's a metaphor again that he gets sucked down as the water drains out. I don't know if you noticed, but all the figures are lined up dancing around this like a flower. Yeah, and they're kicking thing. It's a direct take from the ballet that is definitely in there. And so, see, it's a level of engagement. Again, it would base on whether you knew that or not. If you didn't know what that song was, you wouldn't know that at all. Have basis. But there are so many little things like this in this game that I mean, well, there we go. I've called it a game. It must be a game. There's just too much in there. There is too much in there for it not to be. And now you don't need to, as we've said, you don't need to go to this depth. And I think this depth, it's not like I've sat there and played this for hours and hours. This struck me because of my background. Now, I am 100% sure there are things in there that I don't see because I don't have a background in it or whatever that other people will. But I think that's what makes this something more than just an experience. I don't know. That would be my point. That it is a game. And, I thought the bit you were going to mention, so I'm going to mention it anyway, as the warning, was that at the end of the game, the only living Finch left is the baby, because the girl, as you play as,
not the one we just talked about, the one that the player character was pregnant with.
Yeah, and I mean, again, it's a very subtle reference. If you weren't reading or you weren't paying attention, you wouldn't realize that, because it's done very quickly at the end in sort of a spoken text. And, that's what this game is, just full of subtlety, I think, which for me, this is a game like I can't, obviously I'm very passionate about it. I just think it is something that you have to play, and I really encourage you, if you do play it and you don't get it, just try and like play little sections of it again and see. And if you still think it's full of shit, I totally respect that opinion. But and if you see other stuff than Mindy and I have seen today, please let us know. I've sort of opened a little bit on Twitter. I don't know if that's how it works, about that we were going to do this game today. So by all means, jump in there and tell us either side of the spectrum what you think, what things work, because I'm fascinated by this game. I'm happy to have a dialogue, and I think Mindy is too.
There is
Please.
one more.
No,
It
please.
sounds like you're wrapping it up. There's one more thing I want to bring up to this that I didn't think about at all when I was playing it, but I thought about it the next day. Is Edie, the matriarch, is really interesting to me, because for all that this family has a death curse, the only people who lived past like 30 were Edie and Walter. And Walter lived past 30 because he didn't do anything. He's in that bunker for 30 some odd years. Edie is out and about. She is raising children, burying children. She is living in this house. And she is living to like 70 years old. And that's really weird for like a death curse family. And if you kind of poke around, this is really interesting to me, because the game, if you just play the game the way it directs you to play it, where you're following the text and that leads you to the next area you need to be in, there is little to no indication that this is happening. But you can look at like newspapers on the wall and stuff, and Edie gets like quite a bit of media attention from her family, and she kind of like, she talks about the fact that there's like a troll living under their house, or a golem or something like that. There's like a monster living under the house. She plays the grieving mother, aunt, whatever relation, when her movie star relative dies, and she does all these paper interviews about it. It's really kind of interesting. I don't really know what to make of it. I just picked up on, here's this woman who gets all this media attention. I don't think she talks about like a death curse, but she talks about the monster living under her house. She talks about her movie star relative, and it's always just her. It's not like a closer relative who might still be alive at that point. It's just her. And it's, for all that they're a death curse family, she seems to have died of old age. Like that's just weird. I really don't know what to make of it, but I feel like there's something there that I just haven't quite teased out yet.
That's right. And, in transparency, as we said, I haven't spent hours with this game, but over the course of when it came out to now, I have played it 3 times. In fact, the last time being this morning to refresh my memory. So there's definitely things you will see over time. And I think that's a great point you made about thinking about it the next day. I think this game, if you allow it to, is one of those things that you will think about again. There are many games that you will not as you go, but so with that, I think we could talk about this for hours. So I think we have to be a little careful here. What I would suggest is, if you are a trophy whore and you're thinking, well, maybe I will try again and connect, there is another stack of this game. So, it is out there, and there could be ways to get that through PS Plus on other regions. Perhaps, I'm sure you know how to do that if that interests you, or whatever else. So you might decide to stack it, and you could have a look at some of these things. But I do encourage you, if you do play it, please reach out to us and let us know what you think. Via Twitter is probably the easiest, or whatever means, and
don't use a walkthrough.
And don't use a walkthrough. It's not required.
The only thing you really need to keep an eye on is there's like 7 peepholes you need to look through.
Yes.
It's pretty obvious, that they're there.
Yeah.
But like, if you go on like PlayStationTrophies.org, there's just a text list of where these are.
Perfect. Yeah.
With minimal spoilers. So if you're really worried about like a game-long collectible, just pull up that little text list of 7 peepholes, have that open so you can get your, the trophy. But yeah, don't use a walkthrough. Don't just follow a video guide.
No.
I think you'll regret it.
For everything else, you can go back. Yeah, I think so too. No, I think that's a very good talk. In fact, it's so good that
If this sounds interesting outside of the trophies, I should say, you will regret using a video guide.
Yeah. So I think we'll leave it there. But as you can tell, we could go on for ages about that.
Are you sure you want me to co-host, man? We've been recording for 2 hours.
No, I do, because I think I know, if you've made it this far, listeners, whatever. But in the last week, there's been things happening. It's not my point or opinion to say my personal beliefs on the situation. But one thing I've noticed from people around me, gamers, and of course many of them are what you would classify listeners as hardcore gamers, is there's a lot of dissatisfaction, and the dissatisfaction is coming from their own experiences, whether they want to choose to see that or not. That's where it is coming from. It's not other people, although sometimes it's being pushed that way. And unfortunately, I think that there are so many good experiences out there that can alleviate this, or at least alleviate some of the issues that they have at the moment. And I think this is one of them. So I know for the majority of our listeners, and the direction we're moving in, obviously in this direction, that this is less of an issue. But if you are burnt out, if you're tired, if you have a problem with what you're playing, then play some stuff like this and engage with it, because it is there. It is waiting for you to do that, and if you're not in that position, if you're like me and just love everything, then play it anyway, because you're going to love it, I think. I don't know. I don't know if that's too harsh to say, Mindi, but that's definitely how I feel at the moment about it. So, and if you made it this far, then you're pretty hardcore listener, or you're grinding something amazing. So maybe you can handle that. Well, it's not as bad as the kid one before I made, so I'm potentially in a little trouble after this episode today. So with that in mind, I think what we're going to do is, I don't even think we're going to bother with spam for this week, because we covered a bit of it anyway with the rat release in the new releases, unless there's anything in particular you want to throw out, Mindi.
Yeah, I think the only thing I would throw out there is there's a new acted out game, that charades game.
Yeah, well, that's definitely spam. So that as well. So look, I thank you. As I said, if you made it this far, thank you for listening to us. I do want to thank Mindi again for joining us. I think she's a very valuable asset to this team, and I'm very glad that I think I can call you a friend now. I think we've moved beyond just co-hosting and hosting and stuff. So I'm going to take that label for today, and then you can.
I would call you a co-host.
Oh, I'm going to edit. A bit of creative editing for me again, I see this week, listeners. Not a problem. So with that in mind, she's happy now, so we can wrap it up. Would you like to self-promote, Mindi? Where can we find you? What's happening?
Yeah, I'm over on PlayStationTrophies.org as part of the guide team. If you ever wanted to, try your hand at writing a trophy guide, hit me up over there. I'm also on Twitter at themindisacity.
Excellent. Yeah, good. And if you're looking for Unknown, and Unknown will be back next week, so you don't just have to listen to me for another week.
They would anyway. They wouldn't have to listen to me for another week.
Yeah, Unknown is available on Twitter and Twitch at Unknown625. A reminder, the show's Twitter is at Push2Plat. Really appreciate if you can spread the word, because I'm not really going to do it other than the podcast, so it does help us in a lot of ways.
That's push to number two. You really should start differentiating that.
Number 2 Plat. The show is available on iTunes, podcast, YouTube, SoundCloud, Stitcher Radio, and Spotify. Just a reminder, if you do like us, or if you can at least tolerate us, then please, give us a like, or a dislike if you prefer, a subscribe, or just tell someone, or whatever. It all helps in the long run. So thank you for listening. Have a great week. Play Edith Finch. Come tell me what you think, please. And Mindi, have a great week. Thank you for joining us.
You too. Thanks a lot.
See you guys.